So in this last little bit here, I'm just going to go over this in a red pencil just to define, so you can see how I've defined all the areas here. So, you know, I've already kind of done it in the drawing here, but you can kind of see, and I'm going to show you a closer up of how the planes are broken down. So, you know, I have this plane here, I have another plane here. And so those get broken up into smaller planes too as you start looking at this. Kind of broken this down into these different plane aspects of the drawing. So you can see like how I broke down the forehead, and again we talked about this invisible mask area where kind of everything goes in, so everything goes in towards the skull. So we can draw those. So I'm just kind of drawing these as straight lines so you can see. And then, you have this area here. So this is I'm just kind of defining these. You don't have to necessarily do this in your drawing, but I'm just kind of showing you as an example where I've identified all these different planar shapes. So the planar shapes here, there's a lip here, there's a lower lip here. And so, I have it looking robotic underneath, but on the surface I can make it look very different, right? I can have it, I can just use those proportions to really get an idea of all the areas, so I have the ear, and the inside of the ear is another part that kind of gets pushed back there. So if I just look at it in terms of, inside and outside things, right? That's kind of the idea behind breaking it up into the planes. I have that center line that goes all the way through here, and that, this can vary. Like, not everybody's nose is perfectly centered, but it's around that area, right? So at least it'll help you keep it from being totally off. And so here's the chin, and that chin carries over. There's these other sort of planar shapes that can help you identify all the areas you need to identify when you're drawing. And so I have the chin, mouth. Okay, so and then you have the side of the head here. So that's kind of this simple breakdown, and you can look at the eyelids almost too as these simple geometric shapes that are broken in half, like this. Okay, and the same thing with the side. So here's a little more obvious what I've done, with the different shapes on top of the head. So there's a shape that kind of goes like this. So I have these planar shapes, and so it's going to vary how you do. You don't have to do it exactly as I've done it from your perspective. If you're observing a real head or something like that, you can see that there's going to be some different ways to break it down. But you want to break it down in a way that is going to help you define or make sense of the thing, so that you get an idea of what's the inside or outside of a shape, right? When you're shading it or turning it or whatever you're doing to give it that three-dimensional form, right? So if we look at sort of the profile here, you can really get an idea of how those planes break down, because from side view you can see, there's the upper lip, there's a lower lip, there's sort of this defining shape over here, another defining shape over here. So I'm just basically breaking them down into some very simple geometry. And then so like a 3D artist or something approaches things and they're modeling things at like a more of a polygonal level, they'll use this as a starting point. Obviously for sculpting and things like that, you're going to use far more geometry than I have here if you're a 3D artist. But this is it's a good starting point as far as looking at where do you start breaking down or making simple shapes. So it applies to many different things. Sculpting, if you're sculpting a figure or a head. And so we'll go to the last one here too. So again, this one, we can get another idea of how we're breaking these forms up, right? So again, we have that shape here. So those key shapes, the bigger, I like to define the largest shapes on the face first and then go down to the smaller ones, right? So that's, if you can get the big proportions down right, then the smaller ones will come together. So as you see here, I'm breaking this down into sort of the tip of the nose, breaking these down, this area here, right? And then I have my chin here. Okay, and then we'll do that. So we're going to do this. And so, once you got all those pieces together, it's going to be easier to look at the smaller areas, right? Like the lips, the eyes. So that's how you basically break down the head into simple planes. So again, this is just sort of an exercise, to get you used to doing proportional drawing. So when you start drawing things and dynamically moving things or animating things, or however you're going to draw things in motion or draw things at different views. And a lot of times, if we want to draw the same character at a different view, so this is where the proportional drawing comes in and helps us predict, like, okay, if I've drawn a character and I've invented a character, I might have done a great view of my concept sketch at 3D, but what happens when I pose them into these different things? So this is kind of where when you're doing if you were doing a comic book design or a character design for animation or something like that, to use those creative aspects of really visualizing a character in different angles. This is where the generic head proportions are going to help you.